PowerA has sent us a brand new controller for review.
The PowerA Fusion Wired FightPad.
Is it worth your time?
Hot take!
This is the controller.
We don't have a slide whistle sound effect?
We don't. That was the best
We
I
should
could
have
do.
that on like our soundboard.
Okay, folks. Adam and I have played a bunch of games on the Switch. We've used a variety of controllers.
Yeah.
And I've reviewed a lot of controllers in the past. And we've looked at PowerA controllers in the past as well. So we're familiar with this company. They do some pretty budget controllers and some pretty good controllers.
Right, yeah, usually that makes pretty good. I have the PowerA. They did a Splatoon one that's in the same vein as the Pro controller for the Switch. And I was using that for Breath of the Wild, and I really like that. So we have something that looks... It looks kind of familiar,
Maybe
Shane.
you should hold it because I'm wearing a red shirt.
Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh.
Okay, so this does look kind of familiar, right? It looks like something you might recognize, all right?
Do we have the sound whistle queued up?
I can do it. Go.
Or the
One,
slide whistle?
You ready? There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Saturn. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is pretty much not a direct rip-off of a Saturn controller, but it looks very similar to the original Saturn controller design. And it's got 6 buttons. It's got 2 triggers at the top, and then it has 2 shoulder buttons at the top.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this looks pretty similar. Now, I know a lot of people out there are probably looking at this controller and like, how does that actually work with the Nintendo Switch? It's missing things like other kinds of thumbsticks and stuff, right? And well,
How does it work, Shane?
here's how it works. This is kind of neat, all right? In the direct center of the controller, you'll find a little toggle switch. And the toggle switch allows you to choose directional pad, left stick, or right stick. And from there, you choose whatever you want it to be. And then the D-pad becomes whatever you've selected in the center. On the top right, you also have an additional controller here to switch up your C-stick support and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a pretty functional design. But that's how it works. If you're playing a game that uses just the D-pad, you're going to be fine. If you're using a game that uses just the left stick or right stick, you can switch that up as well.
So right out of the gate, right now, I just want to say that the thing that you said, even though it makes sense, it's complicated.
It is.
And I want that to be the first key point here for people that are like, oh, they're
Yeah.
just going to review a thing that was sent in and be all positive about. It's complicated.
It is. I mean, you look at this and you think, what is the actual function for this? Adam, what is the function for this?
Well, what they wanted the function to be? Okay, this is a fight pad. That's what it is specifically labeled. And this is supposed to be, all of these little toggle things that Shane's talking about are supposed to make this thing work with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
That is correct.
How does it feel playing this thing with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
Well, we sat down and played it for a little bit, and by no means are we Smash Brothers pros. It doesn't work that well. You need access to the other thumbsticks kind of at the same time. There are options on here to kind of make it work together, and you could eventually get it to work with some training and some practice. But for my money, I don't believe this is where it's at. This is definitely not a controller I would use for Smash Brothers.
Do you feel like if someone was able to dabble with the controller settings within Smash Brothers, configure it just the way they want, and they get the muscle memory to toggle things the way they want to, do you feel like they'll have any sort of like one-up on someone that has played Smash traditionally with, let's say, a Pro controller, a real Pro controller?
You know, there's a chance there.
Yeah.
The way that this controller is designed is so that you have access to 6 buttons at the side here. Now, what's important is there's the R and ZR here. This is just the buttons at the back that are actually being transferred over to the front, that you can push them and they do the exact same thing.
Right.
What's really important about this style of layout is that it's very quick for you to hit buttons fast with your thumb. This is going to matter with a lot of other games we're going to talk about, but specifically with Smash Brothers, over time, you definitely could make this work. It could be something that you could be very familiar with, and you might actually have some advantages to using this controller over others. However, I personally don't believe that a Smash Pro out there would be willing to use this over a GameCube design.
It's like somewhere in between where it's not a pro that would necessarily be using this, and it's not someone, like I don't play Smash as much as I should. It's someone that just wants to pick up the game maybe for the first time or only has maybe double-digit hours playing it, may pick it up and be like, oh no, this isn't for me. I'm used to the usual way to play it, but maybe somewhere in between.
Maybe.
But
yeah,
the thing about this controller is that even though they do label it as a fight pad, and a Smash-specific fight pad to an extent, it feels really great for other things.
Yes.
Which was where our worlds were kind of opened up with it.
Okay, so yes, Smash Brothers, a little bit of a difficult promise on this one. I don't think this is something a lot of people out there would want to use. However, when it came to playing this with other games, this is where this controller really started to sing. So first off, the actual bumpers at the top here, the shoulder buttons, these buttons are hypersensitive. I mean, so sensitive, and you don't even barely have to push them to get them to activate. Now, I know that might sound a little bit bad to some people, but I love that. When I wanted to push the button, no matter where you just slightly tap it, no matter where it goes down, it always activates the button. That is a really good design. The triggers kind of feel the exact same way as well. They feel like they have a little bit of a rock to them, but they always feel like they're hitting on point every single time you hit them. The buttons at the front feel very clicky, and they got that really good sense of control to them. The D-pad has this wonderful valley of thumb forgiveness in here, where your thumb just disappears into it, and it makes the D-pad work really well. You noticed this while we were playing Sonic.
The shield style D-pad. I thought it was more prominent and more useful in fighting games like Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing your quarter circle punches and whatnot, it kind of guides your thumb, which was very helpful. The design overall, like we said, it's like a Saturn gamepad, but I find like the buttons feel a little bit like, I don't know, like the classic controller from the original Wii.
Sure.
Or maybe a little bit like the Xbox 360 controllers, sort of like M&M buttons.
They're definitely they're a little bit larger. They're flatter. It's not like you're going to be having this big groove on them.
They're not concave. They're convex. So they're the opposite of a Saturn controller's button.
Yes. And another thing to mention too is that, remember, these buttons all feel the same, so it's not like if you're not looking at the controller, you're going to know which one is which. Some other kind of controllers usually have like a groove of the letters inside of the button itself, so that you know what letter it is that you're pushing. With this, all solid, all flat, you're not going to know. But because of how 6-button controllers work, you can kind of have an idea of where everything is if you kind of memorize your thumb placement.
If you've played the Saturn pad or the 6-button controller for the Genesis, you already have the muscle memory. Because when we were playing, I originally started playing Street Fighter 2 on my Genesis back in the day, and I had a 6-button controller for that, and this felt perfect for that. After I sort of reconfigured the buttons for the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection by Digital Eclipse.
Other features this controller has is on the bottom you'll find a headphone jack if you want to use that. This is kind of cool. So this controller is very well built. It's all plastic. There's no metal on it as far as we could tell. However, it does have one piece of metal, which is a magnet. Now, the front of these face plates can come off, but what I love is that there's no clicking. There's no, like, you know how with really cheap controllers, there's like a faceplate you can switch out, but you have to click it in. You feel like you're breaking the controller every time you do it.
Several people have broken their Game Boy Micros because you have to, like, there's little things you have to kind of press. You don't have to worry about that.
No. With this,
it's all magnet.
Folks, it's just like that, and it's not coming off. I didn't snap it in or anything.
It's an infomercial.
Oh, but
it's just like this.
I wasn't expecting that.
And you forget it.
This kind of quality you never expect to see with these kind of things. It's so effortless.
And
what I love about that is basically it makes you feel like you have a different controller because you can just choose a different color layout. And by the way, these actual like layouts are all included with the controller itself. I didn't actually have to go out and buy more of these. So it's nice to have those in there. This controller specifically also has a really nice feature at the top. So it's not USB-C, it's a USB micro. So on the top, it actually has a USB port or a controller line that comes with it. Now, this is something we've mentioned with PowerA controllers in the past, where they sometimes come with a controller cable that is unique to that device. So if it uses a micro, but if it's shaped different.
There's a proprietary sort of plastic shape that means that it only works with that specific controller.
I've never been a huge fan of that in the past, but with this one specifically, there's a reason for that. On the top, when you put it in, it actually locks it inside, and it has a pressure point to be released.
And boy, is that hard to take out.
Oh, yes. If you're playing a fighting game and you're like moving this thing around, you're not going to lose a connection. And this isn't wireless, so you're only going to use it.
When you want to unplug the thing, you got to really dig in there.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to take it?
Our producer said that it looked like I was shaking afterwards. So I may not be the strongest person in the world, but I found it kind of difficult. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the games that we actually enjoyed playing with this. Like we said, Smash wasn't perfect for this. It felt like it was more of an afterthought than anything else. But when it came to, we mentioned Street Fighter 2, more classic games. Actually,
the Street Fighter 30 Center.
Yeah.
I mean, like everything on that.
It's every Street Fighter game game
Yeah.
for a very long time, the first 30 years of Street Fighter. But we also tried out other things. We went on to, of course, the NES Classic service
Yep.
on Switch Online and the SNES service, and we use this as well. And you know what? It's weird. It's weird playing what is basically a Genesis or Saturn.
A new style, modernized Saturn
Yeah,
design. Yeah.
while playing classic NES and SNES games. But I was playing things like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and that felt like really good.
Yep.
And I didn't have any problems at all with my movement. And that is a very movement and it's sort of, it's very input specific. We'll say.
Absolutely. You know, it's something about this controller that I actually kind of. You look at something like this and you think, okay, it's not going to work with every game. And there might be games out there that, believe it or not, you think would work, but just won't. You can switch that D-pad over to any of the other thumbstick inputs that you want on the fly. However, it's not going to work in every instance. I was playing Tetris 99 with this controller, and while I was fully capable of playing the actual game aspect, the D-pad's fantastic on here, and it was very responsive and very quick and just accurate. The problem is, during Tetris 99, if you're selecting your attack for throwing to other enemies, you can't do that with this because you would actually have to switch the signal out for the D-pad to something else. During a heated moment of Tetris 99, you need to be activated and controlling the actual falling pieces at all points. So switching out on the fly like that is simply not a good choice.
Yeah, so basically it feels like this controller, for as good as it is, it's just not really made for any sort of modern game that makes use of every single input method, especially when it comes to sticks.
Yes.
If you're playing a game that you need one or two of the thumbsticks for, you might run into some problems, and you did. But I was thinking about other use cases for this, like the Sega Genesis Classics Collection. That was before the Mini came out. The Classics Collection came to just about every platform, including the Switch. This is a fantastic way of playing that, because it basically is like a Saturn controller, and it feels wonderful with those Genesis games. And when I immediately found out that it was kind of like a Saturn shape controller, I wanted to try Saturn games with it, and I just happened to have one with me. I had Darius Cosmic Collection, which has Darius Gaiden in it, which came to the Saturn, and it feels great.
Yeah,
it feels super, super good.
This is the beautiful thing about this. Its simple design and idea here is that there's going to be a lot of classic games that work great with this. So this one specifically is for the Switch. It also works on the PC, but there is a PlayStation 4 version. There is an Xbox version, so they can work on those systems as well. Any classic game that you're looking at would work on this, but personally, I would recommend the Switch one, mostly because the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, you know, they're not really about their classic libraries, but when it comes to Nintendo on the Switch, we've been seeing a lot of classic games have the best versions of the collections on there.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of classic controllers released for the legacy of the Nintendo consoles. We've seen that much more on Nintendo platforms than anything else.
Yes, and I mean on PC, another thing that I love about this is that what's really cool is using these kind of controllers with regular USB. It basically treats it like any kind of USB controller, and you can get this running easily on any kind of emulator, and then suddenly you're playing old classic games with this controller effortlessly. So that's the kind of stuff I really like.
Yeah, so I think it's great. My gripes are, again, thumbstick specific titles don't play all that. Well, it depends. Like we didn't try every game, but I didn't really like the jankiness of this, and it requires a lot of explanation to really wrap your mind around it.
Look, it's you can do it in a push, but I think that the traditional controllers you're getting with the Switch or any other system is going to be better with anything that requires the use of dual joysticks.
Right.
If you've got a game that's simple, is only using the D-pad, you're going to have a blast with this. And I think that's really what this is for. It's got a great build, a great feel, and honestly, I prefer wired when it comes to classic games because of the faster connection.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, a better connection latency wise. But if you are all about wireless controllers, this is not for you.
Yeah, absolutely not.
This is not a wireless controller, so
It
don't think about that at all. Like PowerA, the other classic controller that I have at home as well is wired, and I really like that controller.
And you know something else too? I think a lot of people out there, when they see a controller like this and you hear that it's wired and it's from a company like PowerA or any kind of third-party company, you think, oh, it's going to be very light. This thing's weighted. It actually has some heft to it.
You could hurt
so
someone with this.
You probably could. It feels great in the hands. And I'm talking about that in a very specific way because when you're playing any kind of fighting game, you want to make sure the controller isn't going to like warp and bend in your hand.
That's right. And when you
This doesn't
lose,
have
you
that.
can lob it directly at your foe's forehead.
Absolutely.
That's true.
So folks, does this controller sound interesting to you? Do you have any ideas what you could use for this outside of the games we mentioned? Let us know in the comments below.